Welcome to the Draft Brewery. This is Dr. Chris Baker, DC, giving you a little deck tech for my Multicolor Mayhem deck. The Multicolor Mayhem event just ended last week, and it was hosted by Gwinnett, and it was really cool. We had 16 people. It was a league format, so we had 4 rounds of Swiss, cut to top 8, had some good ticket prize support as well, so decks were really competitive. I had a pretty good showing. I was I think, only undefeated 4-0 after the Swiss, and had some really good matches, but none of them are saved because of not being on the beta, now V4. So I do have my top 8 and top 4 match, and a little deck tech I wanted to give you guys for my build here. Basically what happened is the special event was Shards block and RTR block, so it's kind of like a very limited standard popper, but not just standard set. And I think I made top 4 of that event as well, maybe top 8. And I had a hard time losing to direct damage with my Esper build of this deck, so I wanted to build the same exact deck and then just fix the mana base and add Cerulean Gatekeepers. This card is just 28 life and potentially more with Deputy of Acquittals, and just gives you so much late game power against any deck trying to attack you, which is pretty much every deck. And it lets cards like Basilica cards become your win con of just cycling deputies and extorting them 1, 2, 3, or 4 times, depending on how many of these are in play, over and over and over again. It's pretty good late game engine. So to fix the mana base, I still have 4 Azorius, 4 Dimir, 4 Orzhov Guild Gates, added in a Golgari and a Silencia. Basically 2 more Guild Gates, so we have 14, so we're more likely to hit turn 4 Gatekeeper. Also, they tap for white and black, so these lands are not completely useless when it comes to extorting. Say you actually wouldn't want like a blue-green land or a non-black or white dual land because they can't tap for extort. So also the Bant Panoramas, they find blue, white, and are 1 forest. So that helps thin the deck a little bit and just make sure that we can basically cast our spells. The deck that I played ran exactly the same as this, so 3 Capsule. Capsule's actually just not that good in this format. There's a lot of black creatures, some pro-black creatures like the 2/2 bear, and it's reusable, removal, but you definitely don't need 4 of it. Courier's Capsule is just pretty much insane. Font of Fortunes effect with Sanctum Gargoyle. Sanctum Gargoyle is basically the reason why this deck is probably why I thought it was the best deck. I think Sanctum Gargoyle is the best card in this particular Multicolor Mayhem format, because you can just go infinite with capsules with itself. Really it's just unkillable with itself. And capsules, you even have Dispeller's Capsule out of the board, but I was worried about mono red, so I packed full 4 Devour Flesh deputies to take off stab wounds on my guys. My deck's pretty susceptible to stab wound. I can always Devour Flesh myself and capsule myself as well, but it gets good value with all the Gatekeeper effects. Gain 7, kill an X2, make a bunch of guys, super strong. Gargoyles, guards were a great win con, and again I expected a lot of 3/2 Grixis, or not Grixis, but like Grimblades, and so they shut down all the 3 power attackers pretty well. Putrid Leech is one of the strongest cards that I was a little scared of, so at least this can gain some life back, but not do the best at blocking that. But at least all of the white gatekeeper in particular at least can double block the Putrid Leech and trade the Sunspire Gatekeeper and leave the Knight behind. Other than that, the last card of Resounding Silence, again, I was just anticipating more of Rakdos aggro type meta. I've never really cycled it. I did once and it was good. I got like a Sanctum Gargoyle and a Kingpin's Pet or something against somebody, but in general, this card was not necessary. Looking at the sideboard, check it out over here. Again, one of my biggest gripes with the V4 right now is top-bottom deck and sideboard. It's really annoying having it be side to side. But anyway, Dissolver's Capsule, really good against Oblivion Ring, other gargoyles, and I even used it to kill a Courier's Capsule or an Executioner's Capsule when they're tapped out, and so that's pretty good value. Grisly Spectacle, again, just not necessary in this format at all. It's good against creatures with like madcap skills on them that are hard to deal with, but in general, just not an effect this deck really needs. Crypt Incursion, again, a solid card, but I'm not really milling them incidentally. It stops some of their recursion engines, but I should have just played a couple cremates. That probably would have been better. Hindering Light, this card was definitely an all-star against Blightning. It's insane countering Blightning with this. Also, just Terminate and other removal spells just to keep our guys alive long enough to get Deputy of Acquittals, and just it cycles, so it's pretty good. The Outlander, again, pretty much unbeatable. Can't be terminated, can't be, hit by any red removal spells, and it even attacks past like Frostburn Weird, Nivik Cyclops, Rakdos Shredfreak, all the Jund Tackblade, all those cards. Purge Profane, I thought it was like an okay life gain card advantage type card. Turned out to be awful. Shouldn't have played it. Psychic Strike, definitely good, a little expensive, but this effect is just an easier to cast cancel for the deck, really. Cancel would have been fine. It's a little bit better than Dispel. Being able to counter their Sanctum Gargoyles and stuff like that is pretty relevant because you don't want their comes into play effects happening if they're a control deck with Gatekeepers as well. Soul Manipulation, okay. This card is bonkers and should have been a 4 of main deck inclusion, but with only playing one tournament, I didn't really know how good this card is, so I'll show you as you can see over here, mono control build is what I had to play. I was stuck with my original build for the whole 4 weeks plus the top 8, but I'll show you my version 2.0 that is what I would have played knowing what the metagame ended up being, just like very control oriented and a little bit of aggro oriented, but Shattering Blow, again, very good against the gargoyles and stopping the recursion engines. So that's the deck I played. This is the deck that I should have played. So looking at the main board, there's just a few key differences here. Mana base exactly the same. Capsules are good. Devour Flesh was good, but didn't need it. I was a 4 of, so I cut 2 of those. Also cut 2 Ubelsar Gatekeepers. Again, some decks didn't even have X2s to kill. Cut the Resounding Silence, not very good. Added a 1 of Oblivion Ring. It's a good catch-all. It does make us a little susceptible to, like, if they have Dispeller's Capsule type removal, then they can just, side that in and deal with if we had a 4 of O-Ring, and then O-Ring is kind of a blank at that point. But I like it as a 1 of because it can, again, catch anything in play. Getting a Dispeller's Capsule on turn 2 or turn 3 if we're on the play is pretty sick. Soul Manipulation, just so good. We counter their Gatekeeper or we counter their Sanctum Gargoyle, and we get one of our guys back. So a lot of the times when I knew they had Soul Manipulation, but a creature in the graveyard that I didn't really care about, I'll play my Basilica Guards into it because I don't really care if it dies, if I know I can recur it with this and get value later. Still same 4 of the green and white Gatekeepers, and Gargoyles are still insane. So basically just way better against other decks, playing decks similar to mine, a little bit softer to the aggro decks. So when we look at our sideboard, we still are fixed against the aggro decks, right? We can bring in to get up to 4 Devour Flesh 4 Ubulsar and kill all their creatures. Still have the capsule to deal with O-Ring and all of their other artifacts or enchantments, stab wounds and all that. Hindering Lights are still good, Outlanders are still good, Strikes are still good, and I cut the Crypt Incursion for the 3rd Shattering Blow because not everybody figured it out, but the guy who ended up winning it all, who I lost to in the top 4, he was playing basically a better version of my deck, and this card is insane against him. So that would be version 2.0. The new rules that I know Gwynedd wants to use for the league included you're allowed to change your deck every round of the league, which is a little crazy because you could play a totally different deck or you could just change your build a little bit. I kind of like the fact that we had to stick with our build the entire time. I just think it rewards the people who can just test the most and predict the metagame. It's like testing for the Pro Tour. It's an unexplored format, which is fun, but nobody's going to put time into this. Yeah, most you're playing for tickets to pay for a draft, But it's really fun to brew these unexplored formats, at least for me. So I hope you enjoyed looking at the deck. I'm going to show you 2 matches now between, we got Beatnik Bobby and Adner. Some pretty interesting, tense, stressful matches that I really enjoyed playing, and I really like this format. I like the leagues. They're awesome. They're free to play. If you're interested in playing, look up pdcmagic.com. I plan to actually host a league that I'm dubbing M Core Set All Stars, which is going to be M10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, just to incorporate the new set. And basically, all commons that were printed during those sets are legal, and you can build whatever you want from them. And so far, I'm leaning towards, I think you make a build and you stick with it the entire tournament. It's basically a tournament, but a league means you have 1 week to play your match out against your scheduled opponents, and then you play a Swiss, and then it cuts to top 8 or whatever, and then the winner takes all. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks for watching. Back with a couple matches next.